Hey team, hope you're well. Today I wanted to make a video explaining how I help my clients that are self-employed. The reason why I wanted to make this video as well is because when I first got into the industry, I was really curious as well. So I feel like a lot of people that have their own businesses or companies maybe don't have the understanding of what they can do from a personal point of view if they're wanting to buy a property, whether it's their own home or an investment, how much they can borrow based on how much they're getting from their business, or maybe if they're operating as a sole trader and all those things. I've also noticed too, from my time being in the mortgage industry or being a mortgage broker or advisor, is that of my clients, maybe 35 to 40% of them are actually self-employed or have some sort of business that they have, right? So we need to include that in an application that we do. And that's probably higher than the average amount of Kiwis, right? Like I would say 80% of people in New Zealand maybe are PAYE or have a job, at least my experience, and then maybe 20% have their own business or are self-employed. So ultimately, I'm just going to show you like in a spreadsheet format of what I will do for a client, how I'll explain what I think they could borrow based on their situation and some things to consider. So there's kind of like two potential scenarios that someone that is self-employed or has their own business may have. So for example, if you have your own business, maybe you have a company, right? Maybe the company you have is making $200,000 in sales or revenue. Maybe the company has $200,000 worth of expenses to reduce that company's tax liability. So maybe the business is actually making $0, and maybe you pay yourself a salary throughout the year of 70 grand for your personal needs. That might be a pretty classic small business scenario in New Zealand. Maybe you actually aren't claiming as many expenses, and maybe there is a bit of a profit that the business is making. But ultimately, whether you have your own company or maybe if you're actually just operating as a sole trader and basically just paying yourself a salary or the profit, like when I was doing Uber Eats, my 12-month summary may have looked something like this. Maybe I had like $70,000 worth of revenue, $15,000 worth of expenses, and then maybe this was my profit, right? So I probably could have used something along the lines of this when I was working as an Uber Eats driver as the income. I could say I'm making when I do a mortgage application, But ultimately, that might not be enough to justify a bank giving me funds and using this profit, because I had only maybe be doing this for 12 months in this regard. So a bank might not have confidence that I can sustain this income consistently, if there's only 12 months worth of data to suggest it. So that's why you might hear people saying when a bank application is being done or you're applying for a mortgage or actually any sort of loan, is that they might require 2 years of financials. And that is a pretty general rule of thumb, because then it can display consistency. If you can provide evidence of how, a business or company or your sole trader income has been performing for 24 months, it gives the lender a little bit more confidence that that is actually your income. So basically the objective for me is I actually try and figure out and determine a figure that can be used and try to justify it to the bank that is going to be consistent for my client. That's ultimately what I'm looking for. This can also be very subjective too. Like it sometimes isn't always as black and white as this, of like the revenue, expenses, and the profit. There are things like addbacks that can be included in a bank application in some occasions, like depreciation, home office expenses, interest expenses, and these things too. So it can be a little bit more complicated, but ultimately I just like to simplify and say, look, the objective is to justify how much you're earning from a personal point of view. And that can be a combination of what the company is making in terms of profit, because you could actually personally withdraw that at any time if you're, the 100% shareholder, if you just own, the company just individually, or maybe if, it's a husband and wife that operate a company, maybe they're 50% shareholders and we can use half and half of the profits that the company is making. And then we can also use a combination of like a shareholder salary. Maybe an example might be something along the lines of this. Let's put this together. So maybe from April 1st, 2024 to March 31st, 2025, maybe a business was making $200,000. There was $130,000 worth of expenses, and the profit was $70,000. And on top of this, a salary of $60,000 was being paid here. And then from April 1st, 2025 to today's date, which I'm currently recording at the 12th of March, 2026, maybe there was, $160,000 earned. maybe 115,000 of expenses, and there was a profit of, let's say, $50,000. And same salary of this. We'll say here there's just one person or slash one shareholder operating this company or business. So I would say, based on the profit that is being made here, that we can add these two together and average that by 2. So I can say, look, the company is making, actually I've done this wrong. It's 120,000 to $60,000 on average per year. My client can, withdraw that any time because he's the 100% shareholder, and he's also paying himself $60,000 per year personally. So for this client, I might be able to say, look, we can use $120,000 worth of serviceability in a assessment here. There also could be some additions I could make. Like, for example, if these expenses consist of some depreciation, home office expenses, and interest expenses, I can potentially add these back here potentially. But maybe the business also has some debt as well, and that can be a hindrance in an application as well. Like if the balance sheet isn't looking so flash, or there's some liabilities in the business. So they're all things to consider. But this is just like a really simplistic overview of like how I could justify this to a lender to fulfill my client's needs, right? If we can use $120,000 and they have a pretty lean, pretty lean personal expenses. Here maybe they have a vehicle that's in the business, so personally this wouldn't be added, and then all of these expenses here. No existing debt. Maybe as a first home buyer, this person could afford up to this amount of borrowing as the max borrowing with my calculator that I use to determine what someone can borrow. So that could be like a scenario. There's obviously a lot more to it, but I kind of just want to showcase, what, a self-employed client of mine could potentially do. And this is how I come to the conclusion and figure it out. And I go a bit more into detail on with. So if that is of interest to you, I'll leave all of my stuff in the description. And if you'd like to do an analysis of maybe, what you could borrow if you are self-employed or you have your own business or have a company, we can definitely do that. If you don't necessarily want to do a call now and you maybe want to watch some more videos regarding previous videos I made about things that I've personally done for myself, trying to improve my position in buying properties, I'll leave them on the screen, and also maybe some other things that could be good as well. They'll be on the screen. Cheers, guys.